Did you know that Brazil has the third bank in number of bone marrow donors registered? And now we have new rules, new government laws to regulate that. Do you wanna know how Brazil does HLA typing for registry and transplants? Stay with me and let's discover. Hello guys, welcome to the HLA channel. My name is Gustavo and I am a biologist with more than 17 years of experience in the HLA field. And I would like to share with you some of the HLA words. In June 2021, it was released in Brazil new rules, laws that regulate the way it is done HLA typing in the laboratories and for the registry in Brazil. Once we have an integrated system that connects all the banks in the world, maybe what is happening here may affect you in your country. First of all, let me explain briefly how bone marrow transplantation are done in Brazil. When we have a patient for transplant, the hospital requests an HLA typing for him or for her. If there are related donors, such as brothers and sisters, and father or mother, the hospital also requests HLA typing for these donors. These tests may be done in the hospital or in an associated lab. Remember that Brazil has a public system that covers all costs for those who don't have health insurance. Therefore, and this is important to know, most of the transplantation done in Brazil is covered by the government. However, if the patient doesn't have a compatible donor in the family, he must search for a donor in the Brazilian Bone Marrow Donor Bank Registry. In Brazil, it's called Redome. If Redome finds a compatible donor to the patient, then the transplant goes ahead. Again, all these procedures, all these HLA typing are regulated and covered by the government. We will back to this soon. Redome has the third bone marrow donor bank in the world, with more than 5 million of donors registered in its bank. The first one is the American bank and the second one is the German bank, the DKMS. In June, it was also released the Ordinance 1229. It defined the number of donors that each state can get to add to the Redome. I would like to highlight São Paulo state with more than 30,000 donors per year, and Amazonas states, on the other hand, with only 445 donors per year. Therefore, it will be registered in Brazil 140,535 donors annually. Well, it was released two ordinances in June 2021, Ordinance 684 and 685. And I will talk about them simultaneously to facilitate the explanation. When we have a patient, the first HLA test it must be done is an HLA typing low resolution for HLA-A, B, DRB1 and DQB1 loci. The lab will receive 464 Brazilian reais or about 96 American dollars for that. If this patient has related donors to be tested, the same will be done for them, HLA-A, B, DRB1 and DQB1 loci. Once the donor is defined, both patient and donor will do a new HLA type with a new blood collection. But now, it will be performed a high-resolution test for HLA-A, B, C, DRB1, DQB1 and DPB1. The lab will receive 1,300 Brazilian reais, or $248 for each test. A big change was implemented for registry. Now, to register a volunteer donor at Redome, the lab must perform a high-resolution test to type HLA-A, B, C, DRB1, DQB1, and DPB1. Before the new ordinances, it was done only for HLA-A, B, and DRB1 at medium resolution. The lab will receive R$1,030 or $198. Also, and here is another big change, the maximum age for registry in Redome is 35 years old. Once the donor matches with a recipient, it is done a confirmatory test, necessary using a new blood sample. In this step, it is performed HLA-A, B, C, and DRB1 tests, but not at high resolution. Now, the confirmatory test is done by medium resolution. It is the contrary it was made before, where it was done medium resolution test for the registry and high resolution test for confirmatory. For these tests, the lab will receive R$375 or $72. There is an intermediate step done in some cases. For those cases where there is only HLA-A, B, and DRB1 typing, that all donor registered and Redome is not so confident the entire haplotype will match to the recipient, it can be done this intermediate step by doing HLA-C at medium resolution and HLA-DRB1 and DQB1 at high resolution tests. The lab will receive R$550 or $105. As I said, this is an intermediate step. If the donor matches with the recipient, then it will be done a high resolution test. Therefore, for those donors that were registered in the old way, only HLA-A, B, and DRB1 typing, it must be done a high resolution test to confirm the HLA typing. It is done HLA-A, B, C, DRB1, DQB1, and DPB1 for R$1,030 or $198. Again, because it is a confirmatory test, it must be done with a new blood sample. Well, let's summarize what is going on here. We have a patient needing a bone marrow transplant. Are there related donors? Oh yes, good news. So with these new regulations, we perform HLA-A, B, DRB1, and DQB1 at low resolution tests. Is the donor compatible? Yes. So we perform a confirmatory test of 6 loci at high resolution. But if the recipient has no related donors, what a sad. But there is no problem. We have Redome to help him. We have two ways here. For those volunteer donors registered before June 2021, where we already have HLA-A, B, and DRB1 in the bank, it may be done an intermediate step by doing HLA-C, DRB1, and DQB1. The confirmatory test will be done with 6 loci, HLAs A, B, C, DRB1, DQB1, and DPB1 tests. After June 2021, all the volunteer donors will be registered in Redome at high resolution, performing HLA-A, B, C, DRB1, DQB1, and DPB1. The confirmatory test will be done for HLA-A, B, C, and DRB1, but at medium resolution. We have an interesting thing here. We can now perform a CDC crossmatch and a PRA test for those bone marrow patients that have a haploidentical donor. Believe me, it was not covered for bone marrow transplantation before, only for kidney transplantation. And believe me again, there is still no coverage for flow crossmatch tests. For CDC crossmatch, the lab will receive 396 reais, or $76. And for DSA PRA, 393 reais, or approximately $76 too. For solid organ transplantation, especially kidney transplantation, it is performed HLA-A, B, DRB1 and DQB1 for living and deceased donors. You can see the values received by the labs below. And of course, we have CDC crossmatch for solid organ transplantation, living and deceased donors, and PRA for solid organ transplantation. Hey, here I am again. Did you miss me? Unfortunately, the video is getting over. But before I go, let me tell you what I think about all of this. First, these new regulations are more actual. It is more realistic with what is made all of the world. A high-resolution test for the registry is the minimum to be done, and it was an old request from REDOM, from the physicians, and from the labs. However, prices are still not appropriated. We have some tests where were included one more locus, but it is paid to the labs the same amount of money, for example. The number of new registries to be taken each year was considerably reduced, but for me, there are still some discrepancies in the distribution of the number of donors that each state can register. We have here the population of some states in blue, the number of donors registered in REDOME in red, and the percentage of the state population that is registered in REDOME in green. Inside the map, we have how many donors each state can add to the bank annually. Rio de Janeiro state is more populated than Paraná state, with 50% more people, for example. Paraná state has already double of volunteer donors registered in the bank when compared to Rio de Janeiro. However, Paraná state will register the double of new donors than Rio de Janeiro. In the same way, Amazon state has 3 times more people than Acre state, but Acre will register the double of new donors when compared to Amazonas. We have these discrepancies all over the country, and I don't know why it occurs. Maybe it represents the political strength each state has on the federal government, but I think it should be equalized. Now we have the haploidentical transplantation included in the regulations, but it is still incomplete. DSA payment is insufficient to cover all costs, as this kit is too expensive in Brazil. Also, if we find a DSA, for example, in the HLA-DQA1 locus, this exam will be not covered by this ordinance. If the physician requests this exam, the lab will do it for free. Another problem, the virtual cross-match is even not mentioned in these ordinances. The ordinances only talk about CDC cross-match, while most of the labs are migrating to the flow cross-matching. Again, DSA payment is insufficient, and additional HLA loci are not covered. Well, this was my summary of the new ordinances that regulate HLA tests in Brazil. I hope you have enjoyed, and I hope it was useful for you to understand how transplants are done in Brazil. If yes, drop your like and leave a comment. Tell me how HLA tests are done in your country, in your state. See you next time, guys. Bye bye.